Hello and welcome to day 9 of Feel Good, add in dynamic movement. It's probably the top thing you can do to mitigate the stress response, in your system. Number one threat to our health and happiness, living in chronic stress. We were not designed to live in stress. Cortisol, the stress hormone, because it's a hormone, it's released into the bloodstream. So you feel the effects of cortisol for hours. It takes hours for it to subside. And obviously if we live in perpetual stress, then we've got that going on, and it's incredibly corrosive to our systems, puts brain chemistry out of balance, puts bodily systems out of balance, and therefore we get autonomic nervous system imbalance, dysfunction, and failure. None of that feels good. So coming back to dynamic movement, what is dynamic movement? Dynamic means not fast, not all movement is equal. Dynamic for you needs to be vigorous enough to create shift in your system. In this case, let's think about it logically. Stress response, it's fight or flight. When you've got sympathetic nervous system activation, the body is primed for fight or flight. You don't want to fight, but you do need to move. You need to use up that cortisol. That's what it was designed to do, to create movement for you in order to respond to that stressor. So we want to use movement. We may not be able to use it in the moment, but remember what I've said, because cortisol is a hormone released into the bloodstream, the impact of cortisol is far-reaching and long-reaching. So if you can move at some point, that's going to mitigate the impact of cortisol. And we really want to get a handle on this. We have to understand that cortisol conserves energy. So if you want to look good, put feel good first. It trumps everything, because cortisol will not let you lose weight. So start thinking differently about your intentions and where you are and where you want to be. Coming back to dynamic movement, vigorous enough to create a shift in our systems, in this case from sympathetic nervous system activation into relaxation, which is your parasympathetic nervous system mode, and that's where we're supposed to spend the vast majority of our time. But we've got it the wrong way round, we've flipped it around. So 4 movements I'm going to share with you that I use, no judgment here, we all take emotional hits, we all get stressed, we all can feel our systems amping up, so we need to work, with that, bringing our systems down. First one, hula hoop. Now, if I work with one hoop, that's not dynamic enough for me, merely because I've been working with hoops for years, But if I start adding in 2, 3, 4, 5 hoops, I now got a completely different, bodily experience. And I can get a really vigorous movement going that's going to burn up the stress hormone cortisol for me, Now, once I've done that, and I can feel the shift in physiology, and I can feel my system coming down, then I can actually, lose some hoops, just bring myself into a much more relaxed, easy place, So I work a little bit more vigorously, and then as I feel the shift, I just can bring my system down. Maybe yoga's your thing, But if you look at something like yoga stretch, where you hold an asana for several breaths, say something like, here we go, warrior 2, that's not dynamic enough. We can see that. That's not vigorous enough to create shift in the system to burn up cortisol, But if we take our asana and we put them together in a flow yoga move, so for every inhale and exhale, you're shifting, moving through your asana, then suddenly you've got something much more dynamic. And I like yoga move because you control the intensity. You can have a very fast flow or a kind of more medium intensity flow, And again, once you've done your yoga move and you're feeling that you're using up that cortisol, you can feel the system coming down, You feel a lot more easy, You've got a shift in perspective as well as physiology. Then you can move yourself into yoga stretch, and you can end your practice with holding, some of those asana. This is functional training at its best, Anything you do, any movement, to be truly functional, it needs to serve your health and happiness. As I said before, a lot of what we do is not functional at all. it needs to improve the quality of your life. So when we start looking at movement differently and using it to actually, I say, deal with the number one health threat that we have, chronic stress, then that's truly functional, okay? That is functional training at its best. And you can take any movement and make it more functional. Last thing, if you're into the gym, resistance training, what you want to think about here, all right? Using exercises, compound exercises that use a lot of muscle mass in the body to burn up cortisol. Okay, the isolation exercises don't make the cut, all right? There's not enough muscle mass going on. You think in terms of a bicep curl, all right? There's really not a lot going on there in terms of using up cortisol. But when you start looking at squats, deadlifts, pullovers, chins, dips, standing shoulder press, okay, all of those, skip the bench press, again, limited range of motion and very little muscle mass is being used. I'll show you what I mean. All right, if you take a standing shoulder press, this will be my top one, squat and probably standing shoulder press. Okay, so obviously I'm going to show you with water bottles because I'm not in the gym. You can do it with a barbell, you can do it with dumbbells, all right? But look at how much movement I've got going on. Look at how much muscle mass I'm using, okay, in the lift, for starters, but to stabilize the whole of my body. So I'm really using a lot of muscle mass. And you pump out a few sets of shoulder presses, all right, mixed up with squats or deadlifts, and you really are going to use up that cortisol, okay? Whereas if you take a look for a moment at a bench press, imagine I'm on a bench in the gym. I've got my barbell, okay. Okay, so really limited in terms of muscles, bit of pecs, bit of delts, okay. But look at that limited range of movement. That really isn't that functional. In daily life, all right, how many of us use this kind of movement, okay? But the minute you get into your squats, your standing shoulder presses, right, these exercises, deadlifts, these are much more functional. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you want to make your gym training more functional, go talk to a personal trainer, book a session and have them teach you correct technique for squat, deadlift, okay, standing shoulder press, pull over, and as I say, a chin and dips, all right, but assisted dips. And some of these, you know, we've got to work and build up with. Okay, so they're the top exercises, movements, dynamic movements I would use. And remember, dynamic for you, begin where you're at and learn to use movement to actually deal with, mitigate the impact of cortisol on your system. Thank you for sharing this space with me, and I'll see you tomorrow.